When we started this in 2020, what precipitated it in part was the pandemic, but also the feeling that we were heading into turbulent times, not just in relation to the pandemic, but in relation to the experience of dehumanization. And not only dehumanization, but also the objectification of our environment. And it just seemed important to explore what it means to rehumanize, to be in solidarity. Just looking at all those hands, that's a perfect example. And also what it means to speak truth to power. And I just, yesterday, No King's Day, it was a really amazing experience. We were out there in our Santa Fe world and in by the Roundhouse with so many people. It's probably the largest protest that I've ever experienced here in our city. And then looking at the photographs of people in, DC and in London and in Philadelphia and Boston and Idaho and all over. So I just feel a lot of gratitude for our solidarity. And, through this 6 years of this series, we've really tried to deepen our investigation of socially and environmentally engaged Buddhism. I know this kind of Buddhism is not everybody's cup of tea, but it's the meal that we make every day here at Upaya. And also, we've had such extraordinary teachers and artists and activists who've been a part of it. So when I was thinking about the series this year, partly in relation to what I could anticipate this administration would bring to us, so to speak, the question that I ask myself is, truly, what is the measure of our humanity? And at the heart of this question is this question: how do we lay down a sane and compassionate path as we move toward a sane and compassionate future? And so what we've been exploring is, what defines our moral worth, what we stand for, and how do we move forward together in our very tangled world. One of the things that I work on every day is really looking at the values that inform our motivation, like the value of inclusion, the value of belonging, of compassion, of respect, of dignity, and also courage. And these aren't abstract ideals, but they're in our lived experience, in our lived practice in these very complicated times. So I feel very grateful that we gather once a month. It's wonderful that Valerie is giving us some of the extraordinary wisdom that she carries. And I feel also so joyful that we can be together again, all of us. And hopefully what we can do together in listening to Valerie and then, coming into dialogue with each other is to see, what is really going to serve at this time. So, Dinan, I'd love for you to invite the Sangha.
Wonderful. So good to see all of you. Let me turn myself into gallery view also. I wanted to see all of you. So please write into the chat. We want to hear from you where you're tuning in from, and also just one or two words of what's alive for you right now. Maybe from what we did yesterday, many of us were out on the streets. What's the feeling for you today? So please write into the chat and I'll read a few of these out. Let's see. Anna in Brazil, hope. Two people in Toronto, anticipation. In Austin, Carol says hope and connection. Karen, Baltimore, feeling much joy from yesterday. And then we have Amelia feeling gratitude in Tacoma, Washington. Mickey feeling activated. Wonderful. Let's see, Sonia tuning in from New York City. Love and connection. Debbie, hope is more alive from yesterday, huh? It's wonderful to feel that solidarity of being together. And that's what Marianne says. She's in Queens, New York, and she says solidarity. See, Claire in Lake Tahoe says connection. Many's feeling connection and solidarity. Resolve. Valerie says grounded. Let's see. Dorio says encouraged in Oakland. So happy to hear all of these feelings of encouragement and hope. Wendy says tentative hope. Also, it's a little tentative. Susan says in the UK, tired. That too is true. Jan in Nevada says hope and solidarity. Lisa in California says savoring the good. Let's see what else. A few more. Let's see. Connie in Arizona, bordering Mexico. She says she's feeling hopeful. Risa says healing and community. Kelly says interbeing. Meg says a bit of relief. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. And it's just so wonderful to be together. These regular meetings with our wonderful teachers really feel like a community. After doing this for a few years, 6 years we've been doing this. And every time we come together, it just gives me this feeling of togetherness, of resolve. So today we have our good friend, Valerie Brown. So wonderful to have you, good friend. She is, you probably already know if you've been tuning into Upaya, but Valerie Brown is an author, Buddhist Quaker, Dharma teacher, facilitator, and executive coach, specializing in leadership development and mindfulness practices with a focus on diversity, social equity, and inclusion. She's a former lawyer and lobbyist, and Valerie transformed her high-pressure 20-year career into serving leaders and nonprofits to create trustworthy, authentic, compassionate, and connected workspaces. She's the author of many award-winning books, including her latest book with her two friends and co-author in the Plum Village lineage. Beautiful book right here, Healing Our Way Home. Black Buddhist teachings on ancestors, joy, and liberation. So please check that out. And it's just so wonderful to have you here, Valerie. Valerie will start with a grounding practice or meditation practice, and then she will go on to her talk.
Well, dear Thai, dear Sister Chang Kang, dear Roshi and Dainan, Kodo, beloved Upaya community, and to those gathered here. Wow, thank you so much. Thank you for those beautiful expressions of emotions. So shall we gather up all of these expressions of emotions that we're feeling at this moment and settle in to just a few minutes of grounding and centering ourselves as a community and individually. So the invitation is to begin by taking a few deep breaths. breathing in and breathing out. And this may be the first time today that you've actually taken a few deep breaths. And it may take a few breaths to come into and actually feel the sweetness of your own in-breath and your own out-breath. So beginning with a moment to feel your feet on the floor, on the ground, and connecting with that sense of stability, the ground beneath you holding you up. There's never been a time in your life, there's never been a time in your ancestors' life when the ground has not been there to support you. So feeling the stability and the solidity of the ground underneath your feet. And then turning to the breath in the body. Perhaps feeling the breath at the tip of the nose, or perhaps you're feeling the rise and the fall of the abdomen as you breathe in and you breathe out. Or maybe you're feeling the breath as it moves throughout the whole body, feeling the breath at the back of the body, at the sides of the body, and the front of the body. So locating the breath, bringing your awareness to this in-breath and the fullness of the out-breath. And bringing your awareness from the breath to these emotions, whether they are pleasant, unpleasant, or neither pleasant or unpleasant. Noticing the coming and going of these emotional states of mind, these feeling tone. And as with the breath, allowing a quality of softening, opening, a kind of harmony with whatever the feeling tone of the mind state might be at this moment. And knowing that you are not alone, that we are here as a community, supported, breathing together in this moment of life. This is a happy moment, a moment of togetherness. So again, returning to this sense of your own breath in the body. Feeling the breath at the tip of the nose, maybe the rise and the fall of the abdomen, or the whole body breathing. Allowing for whatever passing mind state may be at this moment, making space for all of it. Connecting with your own center point of stillness, openness, and receptivity. And extending a quality of goodwill and kindness from your heart to all of those who are here on this call. And beyond this call. So generating a mind and a heart of openness and goodwill in this moment. And breathing in and slowly releasing the out-breath. And again, maybe another deep breath in. It may take a few breaths to, again, reach and feel the sweetness of your own in-breath and your own out-breath. Yes, this is a happy moment. So with that, transitioning and maybe stretching just a little bit, maybe inhaling the arms up and looking up and floating the arms down and taking any movement that feels comfortable for you, maybe twisting to the left or to the right, whatever would support you. So again, a very deep bow to you all and welcome. Again, I want to express my deep gratitude for being here and acknowledge the entire Plum Village community of socially engaged Buddhism, really the Mahasangha worldwide, the monastic and the lay community. And when I'm talking about gratitude, of course, I want to lift up all of the cultural and the ancestral and spiritual influences that really have shaped me, and to say that my feet are touching the ground in New Hope, Pennsylvania. This is the traditional lands of the Lenape people, and specifically an area called Aquitang, which in the language of the Lenape people means the spring in the piney trees. So this is a place of many rivers and streams and watersheds. I want to acknowledge the Asian roots of Buddhism, something that can sometimes get lost in our very American context. And since I'm on acknowledgements, I want to acknowledge and pay homage to the Vietnamese people that have produced a Thich Nhat Hanh. And so I have a lot of cultural humility. There's a lot I don't know. And since I'm speaking about culture, I want to also acknowledge my own African American ancestry. I come to the Dharma from the lens of a Cuban and a Jamaican perspective from my cultural heritage. So this year would have been Thich Nhat Hanh's 100th birthday. Yes, 100th birthday. And surely these times that we are in were made for the teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh. So as many of the speakers who have been on the series have said, yes, we are living in this polycrisis, intersecting crisis that's really at scale. So this crisis is both is escalating, it's intertwining, it's intersecting. And the feminist scholar Bell Hooks described this as interlocking systems of domination that really define our reality. And of course, this has given rise to a global mental health crisis that many of you have alluded to in the chat, with the stress and anxiety, a kind of epidemic of loneliness that spaces like this are really designed to address. And the so-called tech boom that we're in the midst of has manipulated our attention span, leading to moral and ethical implications. You know, the rise of polarization. Many people call this a kind of disagreement epidemic that we are in, with an increase in short-term thinking and really the loss of meaning. So I'm thinking here again from this cultural lens of the words of the great reggae star Bob Marley, right, who said, "He who feels it knows it more. He who feels knows more." A kind of antidote, feeling as an antidote to the kind of anesthetization, the domination, the polarization that's driving this disconnect. And of course, the pervasive busyness and a kind of incentive-based motivation that we see everywhere, rather than, you know, what Roshi has talked about, that our actions coming from a place of the social order, the social good. So I want to begin up front by just saying, yes, of course, we're anxious. That's actually a reasonable response to the overwhelm. Yes, this makes sense. And increasingly, people are asking questions and attending these kinds of gatherings. So some of the questions, and Roshi alluded to this earlier, that people are asking is, how can I be grounded enough? And here the operative word is enough, in the face of all of what I've described. How can I be hopeful enough to, in the face of what I've described, and take action? So again, we're seeking community, we're seeking support, and spaces like this are really essential. So this is a talk largely about transformation, and I'll be sharing Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings on how we actually transform suffering within us and around us into peace and compassionate action. So Roshi has invited me to speak from the heart. And so you are invited to listen from the heart. So I want to begin by speaking a little bit about how it is that in January of 2021, I found myself at the doorstep of Upaya Zen Center. And I have just enormous gratitude to Roshi and the entire community for their love and their care. So I didn't go to law school to be a Buddhist Dharma teacher. You know, right there is a kind of transformation. Like many people, you know, I went to law school to make money, and I don't feel proud about that. You know, it was kind of crass. And like many people, I grew up with a lot of poverty, a lot of violence. I grew up in the People's Republic of Brooklyn, and so you could blame some of it on that. But I grew up with a mom who was a maid. She worked at the Hotel Manhattan, and she was a single parent, and every penny went to send us to Catholic school. So I never spent one day in a private school, in a public school. And in my household, my mother was Catholic, my grandmother was Catholic, and my mother and grandmother both practiced Catholicism and Santeria, the religion of the Afro-Cuban people. So I grew up with a kind of open mystery about life. I saw a lot of paradox and kind of the bigness and the complexity of life at a very early age. But fast forward, you know, after my mother passed when I was a teenager, I packed my bags at the age of 19, trying to escape the violence, and with little more than the clothes on my back, got a job at Burger King and went to school at night because it was free to college. So I did a lot of running from undergraduate school to graduate school to law school to the big and important job as a lawyer and a lobbyist. There was just one problem with the job. It was killing me. It was like killing my soul. And so fast forward again, I'm in my brother's apartment in the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and the year is 1994. And he's flipping through the New York Times, and there in the paper is a photo of Thich Nhat Hanh. And Thich Nhat Hanh is giving a talk just down the street from where we are. And my brother knew absolutely nothing about Thich Nhat Hanh. He knew nothing about Buddhism, but he knew a lot about me. I was very much the type A, aggressive, quick to temper, lawyer. The result of so many things. But Trevor was always right, so I went down. I listened to the talk, and 4 or 5 hours later, I emerged from the talk, and I thought, no way. No, this is not for me. peace and love and compassion. No, I can't do that. That's gonna cost me way too much. I've spent all this time, trying to become a lawyer, trying to be somebody. Now I'm gonna do peace and love. I don't think so. But something was touched in that moment. So I just, started practicing. I was kind of a closet meditator because at that time it certainly wasn't acceptable to be a lawyer lobbyist practicing meditation. At least so I thought. But, crisis after crisis and stress after stress happened. And one day, in a really stressful time, I decided to take myself on a vacation. And I went to one of my favorite places, which is not far from Upaya, in the village of Abiquiu in New Mexico. Some of you may know this place. And so I climbed to the top of a very big hill and I took off my backpack and I was just kind of sitting around and looking up at the sky. And I had this jaw-dropping moment. Like, duh, there are clouds up there. And they move slowly. It's like, wow, where have I been? Oh man, that was a radical moment for me. I realized I was not only alienated from myself, I was alienated from the natural world. And so I started practicing yet again in earnest. And I thought, I'm a working person. I don't have time to sit in meditation. So I started practicing mindfulness as a lobbyist in the halls of Congress. And what did I do? As I was talking to people, I would do just like what we did in the meditation to start. I would feel my feet on the floor. I would feel my breath in my body. I would generate within myself a sense of ease and calm. I wouldn't open my mouth to speak until I could feel ease and calm in my body. And then what I said, whatever came out, had a sense of ease and calm. And it kind of changed the space of the advocacy. It changed the relationship. It changed the energy. That was a transformation. Over time, people began to say, you don't seem like a lawyer. And they were right. That kind of led to the I don't know, second or third midlife crisis that then led me eventually to the doorsteps of Upaya. But what did I learn from all of those years with Thich Nhat Hanh, with the Zen master? Yes, he spoke in many languages, a scholar of Pali, a scholar of Sanskrit. Yes, all of that. He'd go from French to Spanish to English to Pali to Sanskrit in one Dharma talk. But that's not so much what I remember. What I remember, of course, is the peace that he emanated, the joy, the way he opened a door, the way he walked into the Dharma hall. That was the transmission of the Dharma that he gave to me and to so many people. So Thay has written more than 100 books. And if you read the first book or you read the 100th book, it's all the same thing. No, just kidding. I mean, it is a model in the Plum Village community of healing and transformation. And it's the same model if you read the first book or the 100th book. It is the same model if you go to a practice center in Malaysia or you go to a practice center in Memphis. And so I'd like to share with you that model. So what Thai has taught is that the energy and the practice of mindfulness, concentration, and insight helps us to embrace our own suffering, the suffering within us, and the suffering that is around us, to calm our body and to calm our mind. And that as we change, transform within, we necessarily transform the social order, our society. And that begins with the first practice, which is the practice of stopping, shamatha. And you could say in a way that we're practicing stopping now. So stopping is not just about stopping moving fast, like busyness, pervasive busyness that I described. Sure, we can physically stop, but it's stopping the ruminating thoughts of the mind. And this is a practice of healing, and it's a practice of resilience. So with shamatha, or stopping, we practice vipassana, which is looking deeply. So the stopping and the looking deeply are like the wings of the bird. So when we look deeply, we're engaged in mindful inquiry and asking, how do I feel? What action is skillful now? So this is a process of inquiry, of curiosity, not about black and white thinking. This is about complexity and the capacity to hold nuance, a kind of open mystery that I described with my mother, being able to practice Catholicism and Santeria. So this isn't the same as paralyzing doubt. This is really about cultivating a radical mindset of lifelong learning, which is why, in part, Thich Nhat Hanh has said the next Buddha is the Sangha. So when we are able to stop and to look deeply, to investigate, we move from these conditioned patterns, this autopilot, into a space of choice, which supports understanding and insight. And of course, what I'm sharing is mirrored by the 7 factors of awakening, or the paramitas, or the 8 realizations of great being. You can hear the echoes of this in those teachings. So this calming and this resting is an integral part of the stopping and the looking deeply. So Thai has said the calming of the body is actually a prerequisite to our healing. The Buddha's last admonition, he said, be an island unto yourself, take refuge in yourself. So in 2014, Thai gave his last global tour, and it was entitled The Art of Suffering. The Art of Suffering. And you think with a name like that, you'd have like 10 people who would sign up. But there were like thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So I was on tour with Thai and with the community. And what I'm sharing about this model is what Thai taught all these people. And again, the first step Thai taught was to transform suffering. We stop. We come back to our body, We come back to our breathing. We take good care of the hurt, the disappointment, all of the suffering. We embrace that with a quality of tenderness. Now, that may seem counterintuitive. When we have suffering, it's like you want to get away from that. The last thing you might want to do is actually to embrace something that does not feel good, right? So you can hear that the kind of counterintuitive nature of this. But this is what we do. We actually take a vow to work with our suffering. We don't deny it, we don't avoid it, we don't get rid of it, we don't look the other way. So we recognize, we embrace, we accept, and we look deeply. And this is the model. So I want to share a little bit about other living examples of this stopping, looking deeply, transforming that exists today. So I want to begin with Minneapolis. In 2025, the Smitten Kitten, a trans-centered sex toy shop and community hub for the trans community, was on the verge of going out of business. They had reached the end of their rope, competing with these big box stores and such. So the owner of the shop sent out an email, and the very next day, the community rallied, and they all came in, and the sales went up. And then this year, in January, when ICE came to town, the Smitten Kitten was ready. They were very well positioned. The Smitten Kitten was close to where Alex Prete and Renee Good were murdered. The Smitten Kitten transformed from a sex toy shop to a hub for mutual aid for the entire community, distributing diapers and baby formula and food and offering rent assistance to people. Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of great compassion, is said to have 1,000 arms and 1,000 hands. And the hands represent the infinite capacity to respond to the cries of the world. And in each hand, in the palm of the hand, is an eye. And that eye represents the union of seeing and then taking action. Seeing and then taking action. So that compassion and action go together. The eye perceives the suffering in the world, and the hand takes action. And this bodhisattva is seated on a lotus, which is a symbol of the purity of intention. So this representation really feels instructive to me. So how do we engage in social witness today? And here I want to lift up the words of Venerable Panavati, a Christian pastor and Theravada bhikkhuni, a lineage holder in the Zen Peacemaker order, who recently passed away. She said, quote, "It is not enough to sit on our zafus. These times call for compassionate action to be an integral part of our practice." In 1977, Tai wrote a poem to Sister Chang Kang, his lifelong spiritual colleague. the name of the poem is always the same, always the same. So I'd like to read a few lines. Love tries hard to express itself. What can we do? We know that our hands are available. We know that our hands are available. We are ready. We are ready. What can we do? The answer will certainly come if we know how to remain faithful and keep calm in the midst of turbulence. So I want to invite you to a practice, right here, right now, just as you are, to take a look at your hands. Can you see the hand of Avalokiteshvara? Can you see the compassion that is there in your own hands, in the palm of your hands? Your own tenderness, your own strength, your own courage, your own resilience. You know, when I invited this question to a group of activists in Washington, D.C., asked them to recall, your own strength, your own compassion. What is it that you can offer to the world? One person raised their hand to say, I'm a decent driver. Well, the world needs decent drivers. So we're all bodhisattvas in the making, and we're asked to engage not alone, but to engage in loving confrontation as a community, recognizing injustice, to name injustice, and to generate peace within ourselves, and to take action from a place of non-violence. So this action is obviously not just for us, but it is for the protesters, or some say the defenders of democracy, for all of us in this beloved community. And remembering, going back to the civil rights era, that the folks fighting for civil rights did not just seek victory. They didn't seek victory. They sought justice and reconciliation, a justice that uplifts all. So should you need more inspiration for action? Okay, here you go. I'm thinking of 5-year-old Liam Canijo Ramos. Remember Liam, 5-year-old Liam, in his plaid winter coat and his blue bunny hat, carrying a Spider-Man backpack, surrounded by ICE agents? Remember that? You know, as a lawyer, I get excited by judicial opinions that speak not just about a lawsuit, but about the conditions of our time. So I want to share a couple of quotes. The first is from Judge Fred Beery, a Clinton appointee who issued the order for the release of little Liam and his dad, who were illegally seized by ICE and detained. Quote, "The lust for unbridled power and the imposition of cruelty in its quest knows no bounds and are bereft of human decency." The lust for unbridled power and the imposition of cruelty in its quest knows no bounds and are bereft of human decency, end quote. So an update, their appeal for asylum from their home country of Ecuador has been denied and continues to be appealed. Maybe you're looking for more inspiration, and here I want to lift up Thay's book, global citizen. In the book, Thich was interviewed by a Christian theologian who asked him, how do we bring about a global spirituality? Thich didn't go strategic. He didn't say, do this, do that. He said, there's always a relationship between the spiritual and the ethical. There is a relationship. Anything can be spiritual. If we bring that quality of mindfulness, if we take the virtuous path, the path of understanding that seeks to alleviate suffering. So I'm thinking, we just finished Black History Month in February here in the United States. And it felt different to me somehow, like something's going on here. Yes, it was the 100th anniversary of Black History Month in the United States, but something was different. So I live outside of Philadelphia, and we're getting ready for the big celebration of the 250th anniversary of the United States. But in Philadelphia, we're in a fight. We're in a fight because as we're celebrating Black History Month, the National Park Service was busy removing exhibits that memorialized the enslaved people that our first president, George Washington, kept. And the National Park Service was removing these monuments from the Independence National Historic Park. And so, without the consent of the city of Philadelphia, so the city sued. And so, in federal court, the U.S. District Judge, Cynthia Roof, who is a Bush appointee, issued a 40-page ruling. And I just kind of geeked out on this ruling. It was like, wow. And so I want to share how Judge Roof began this opinion. And both opinions are on the resource page. So you could read the 40-page ruling for yourself and geek out. But Judge Roof began with George Orwell's 1984, and she began with this quote that I want to share with you, and then a little bit of Judge Roof's ruling. So, quote from Orwell, "All history was scraped clean and reinscribed exactly as often as was necessary. In no case would it have been possible, once the deed was done, to prove any falsification had taken place." End quote from Orwell. And now from the judge's ruling. Quote, "As if the Ministry of Truth in George Orwell's 1984 now existed with its motto, 'Ignorance is strength,' this court is now asked to determine whether the federal government has the power it claims to disassemble and disassemble historical truths when it has some domain over historical facts. It does not." End quote. So we all need inspiration for these times. And I want to lift up, this being Women's History Month, again, the words of Sister Chen Kang from her book, True Love. She said, quote, "When you want something ordinary, you can go to the store and buy it. But when you want something extraordinary, like love, understanding, and peace for a whole nation, you have to pay for that with something much more precious than money." End quote. This is bottom-up transformation. This is transformation at the base. This is what Thich Nhat Hanh has devoted his life to. Meeting violence with peace. Forgiving those we think are the cause of our suffering. Meeting hate with the power of unconditional love. Generating peace within ourselves. Calming ourselves. Of course, I'm thinking about the Buddhist monks who took the 15-week walk for peace, a 2,300-mile walk from Fort Worth, Texas to Washington, D.C. that ended just last month. They began each day with a beautiful gatha, a beautiful prayer. Remember, today is going to be my peaceful day. That's how they began every day. Today is going to be my peaceful day. So this calls for the engagement of the compassion of Avalokiteshvara, this, and the fierce determination of Manjushri. And as we face all of what I've described, this kind of great unraveling, make no mistake, the peace, the capacity to generate peace within ourselves is not just about calming our nervous system. And yes, to calm our nervous system is an indispensable skill. But this is not about being calm when things fall apart around us, but to be calm and peaceful, to be grounded and solid, and to take compassionate action. These are the teachings in the factors of awakening in the paramitas and the realizations of great beings. To understand that this is not about victory, about I win, you lose, but about justice that uplifts all. We're asked to hold an open mystery, just like I did when I was a young child. So I want to offer a poem that was shared to me from my friend Alexa. The poem is from Karen Samuelson, and it's entitled "The World is Both Burning and Blooming." The world is both burning and blooming. You get the bad news and the sunrise the same day. You get the bad news and the sunrise the same day. You cry over the headlines, and then you laugh at a baby wearing a hat in the shape of a bear. This is the dual citizenship of being alive. This is the dual citizenship of being alive. Rage and reverence, grief and grace. You are allowed to feel both. You are allowed to scream and still notice how good the soup is. You don't have to choose. Let it all in. We're tasked with creating the country we deserve. We're tasked with creating the democracy we deserve. We're tasked with creating the planet we deserve. So I'd like to close out with the words of Angela Y. Davis, the great civil rights leader. We need to prefigure the world we want to create, and to do so with art making, with joy, and with song. To create the world we want, to create the world we deserve. So thank you everyone for your listening, and thank you for placing that poem in the chat. A deep bow.
Thank you so much, Valerie. What a beautiful, grounded, and hopeful talk. And that poem really describes that feeling of living in paradox and in this world right now. Being able to see the joy, feel the joy, but also holding all the suffering. So thank you so much. And we would love to hear from you. If you have any comments or questions for Valerie, please raise your hand, and we would love to hear from as many of you as possible. It's always so wonderful to just hear your experience and what's going on for you right now. So please raise your hand. And if there are people who would like to speak in Portuguese, I think our Portuguese interpreters will be able to do that as well. So please raise your hand. And also you can write in the chat as well. Don't be shy. Please, we would love to hear from you. Let's see. Debbie. I've unmuted you, so we're controlling. You can unmute yourself. We're competing in the unmute button, I think. Okay, there you are.
Okay. My hands are off the keyboard. Just so much gratitude. So much of what you shared, Valerie, just touched me in so many ways. Both tears of joy and remembrance, and way things unfolded in my life, as well as the continuing tears of concern and frustration. And I find myself, maybe it's part of getting older, that I don't like to bother with screening all of my emotions for, is this okay for prime time? I just kind of let them out. But it touched me in a way that I want to say out loud scared me, because that helps me to not run away. But there has been a sense of, is it time to start on another chapter? And that is scary. And I appreciate the way things unfolded, and certainly I don't know, I'm starting to babble. I don't want to do that. There was a lot of gratitude and recognizing, as much as I've often considered myself a change junkie, that I'm still afraid of change when it feels big, and want to be thoughtful about that. This gives me a lot of hope, and I am looking forward to my own art projects of, yes, I will be doing some hands with eyes in them. I think that would be very therapeutic to me at this point. And gratitude. Thank you all so much for being here. And thank you so much, Valerie, for sharing with us. And, may we all find our sense of truth and our direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Debbie. Thank you for your raw emotions and your tender heart. Thank you. Marianne.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Valerie, your voice is so steady, so strong, so deep, and also holds the vulnerability and the grief, all of it. And it speaks to me personally, and I know to everyone that we are capable of holding it all. We are, in our own way, perhaps. So I also have felt the tears. And my hand right now has been baking bread. I took it to I take it to the park where I'm a teacher in a park nearby. I've been taking bread for the last year, but now I'm really doing it in earnest and took it yesterday into the city, into Manhattan. I live in Queens and took it into the city for the march. We had actually a march out here in Bayside, this small little town, which I think it's very diverse, but there's a tendency to be a little conservative, rednecky almost. And yet it's such a diverse community. We have one of the largest Nepalese part of it, which I'm very connected to. And anyway, I'm feeling strong and fierce, and I also feel the tears and the sadness and the vulnerability. But I told this to Dinan in a session that we had about anger, that I feel a fierceness. I feel a fierceness. And I feel action. Seeing things as they are, and I feel the call to action. So thank you. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And Marianne, thank you for your bread baking. We need good bread.
Good bread. I'm doing seeded sourdough bread. So
when can we come over?
I'm going to bring some to Upaya when I come.
Oh, please. Yes.
Yes, I'm coming finally in the spring. I hope to be there for several things. And I have finally gotten my application in for chaplaincy.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 Wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a bodhisattva training for sure.
So ready. So
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something about doing something with your hands, like baking bread is so tactile. And that kind of restorative restoration that comes from doing something with your hands is wonderful in these times.
It really is. I mean, it includes everything.
Mm.
It's like the elements. I come from Chinese medicine background, and it's the elements, fire, water, air. It's so deep. And you're right, the tactile. And who doesn't love good bread?
Definitely.
And even the people who say they can't have gluten, there is a really good starter that I have. And it's healthy. It's really, that's the other thing. The ancestors, it calls the ancestors. You have a starter, and you carry that starter on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Valerie, I think you just did some things with your hands as well. I'm just wondering if you could reflect and encourage other people to find restoration in that way.
Yeah, so really, this is just so resonating. It's like you were just in our conversation, Marianne. Just the importance of that kind of desensitization that Roshi described, that I had described earlier, and going back to the words of Bob Marley and many other people who've talked about this, about really feeling it. And to me, this capacity to feel again through our hands, through our eyes, to connect with our bodily senses is a transmission, right? And so whether one is baking bread or one's a good driver or, one is making a painting or planting a garden, this is really so important. It's really the practice. It's a practice of meditation. And I'm thinking here about a story that Thai said many, many times. You know, as I said, he's written more than 100 books. And at one point, someone said to him, "Oh, Thai, why are you writing? Why are you gardening?" You know, because Thai was a big gardener, loved to be in the garden with his hands. And you should be writing yet another book. And Thai's reply was, the way I plant lettuce is the way I write poetry, which is the way I write a book. So this is all interconnected. This is the wisdom of interbeing. So the way you create, the way you bake bread, is connected to the way you speak, the way you listen, to your activism, to your work in the world. So it's all interconnected. So a deep bow to this practice of mindful bread making. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's hear from some more of you. Jerome, I'll unmute you. You're unmuted.
Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Valerie. This was a wonderful talk for me. I really appreciated your bringing to mind the teachings of Thai. And I've been practicing in the Plum Village tradition since I walked into a small church in Berkeley in 1984 to see a Dharma talk. And I had no idea who was talking. And it turned out I sat next to Thai, and then he got up and gave the Dharma talk. And he said in that talk, if the West stops drinking alcohol by 50%, we could feed the world. And I said, this is the guy I've got to follow. He has wisdom, he has compassion, he knows what truth is. So I'm curious about how you went from being a lawyer to being a Dharma teacher, that path of yours. I've been on this path now for 40 some years, and it's been a wonderful journey. I'd love to hear your story. Thank you. Jerome, bowing up.
Thank you, Jerome. This is such a beautiful question, and I am so grateful. And what a wonderful opportunity to have that warm hand to warm hand transmission with Thich Nhat Hanh those many years ago. So I began this talk sharing a little bit about how I made the journey from being a type A, pretty much type A lawyer, to a Buddhist Dharma teacher. And the journey continues. It is ongoing. I am still a lawyer. I am no longer lobbying. But the kind of the short end of the long story, and maybe you weren't here for that portion of the talk, was really a series of awakenings, you know, waking up, and the first was, well, one of the first was that day back in 1994 when I went to a talk that Thai gave. That was a transmission for me. Something was touched in me. I certainly resisted it because I had built a whole life and a career on making money, getting ahead. And so I, in some ways, was being asked to rethink that and dismantle that. And so this was really about an inner transformation, a transformation of my mindset, my values, and direction. and the manifestation of that followed. And then, the epiphany moment I had in Abiquiu, looking up at the clouds, when I realized that the lifestyle that I had cultivated for all those years of pervasive busyness, of get ahead at all costs, had done extreme violence to me. My mindset was violence. And it was not just a mindset of violence, but of alienation from myself, other people, and the natural world. And so all of that led to a kind of stopping, like, what's really happening here? And looking deeply of Vipassana, like, is this why I was born? To make money, to be a lawyer, to get ahead? Is there something more in my life? And asking these questions, which I continue to ask every day of my life. So that's the short end of the long story, and I'm still in the process of transformation. Now, I know that there has been a question in the chat that's come up twice about what is the connection between Quakerism, being a Quaker, and being a Buddhist. So, as I said in the talk, I began as a Catholic. My mother is Catholic, my grandmother is Catholic, and then becoming a student of Thai, and becoming a member of the Religious Society of Friends. I happen to live in the epicenter of Quakerism in the United States. Someone once said to me, "You throw a stone and you're going to hit a Quaker meeting," and that's kind of true. But there is a wonderful synergy between the Quaker faith and practice and the Buddhist faith and practice. If we look at the Quaker testimonies of simplicity and the peace testimony, of course, equality or equity, these are all grounded testimonies within Quaker faith and practice. And of course, the fundamental principle in Quakerism, which is that there is that of God in every person, no matter their condition. I know there were a lot of raised hands, so I will pause there, and thank you for the question.
Thank you so much. Kelly, I've unmuted you.
Thank you. Dear Sangha, dear Valerie, I want to thank you, Valerie. You've given me an epiphany today. I'm here in central Minnesota. I've been trying desperately to figure out how to explain to the rest of the world what I have an up-close seat to watching. And when you brought up bell hooks and the interlocking systems of mutuality, I thought immediately, we're seeing the interlocking, or you talked about the interlocking systems of domination. We're seeing the interlocking systems of mutuality emerge visibly here in a way that fits with the old quote from Dr. King, right? We're caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality. The singing resistance, where they stand outside the hotels where ICE people are staying and sing, "It's okay to change your mind." The Haven Watch, where a woman took her sons to the Whipple Federal Building where immigrants are being held and saw that people were being let go with no coat, no phone, no food, no ID, and started organizing 24/7 for people to be there to greet them with a coat and a phone and connection and bring them back into society. And we're seeing this all over the country. The response to Dolores Huerta and the women the terrible revelations about Cesar Chavez, and the response that has been dominated by belief and willingness to wrestle with what you were saying, Valerie, to accept complexity and nuance. I've seen this in a way that became most concrete for me yesterday when I had to decide, do I go to the Twin Cities and hear Bruce Springsteen and Maggie Brown and Bernie Sanders? Do I go to the demonstration in St. Cloud where they really just need bodies to show up? And I went to St. Cloud, and I'm so happy I did, because I was just interacting with all these people. A lot of them, this is my first demonstration. I've been hearing that for a year and a half now. And I'm going on too long, but comparing that to folks who went, yes, if you went and saw Bruce, you're in a crowd of 200,000, it was marvelous. But it was also the kinds of typical nonviolent action in our country that people have responded to over and over again with, we need to do more, we need to take action. And I think what we're seeing here in Minnesota now, to me, resonates with the 1,000 arms and hands and eyes of Avalokiteshvara, these networks, the middle-class white parents in Minneapolis with minivans who are carpooling immigrant children to schools. And there's no leader at the head of this telling us all what to do. I found, even here in central Minnesota, we have ice here too. What needs to be done is emerging, and the resources you need are there because the infrastructure has been built over time. So the native dancers are showing up at some of the protests, and the Black Lives Matter folks are the first ones to stand up and support Alex Preddy and his family and Renee Good and her family. And I'm sorry, I've gone on too long, but like I said, you've given me an epiphany, and we really see these. If you're worried that you're not seeing these things happening yet in your neighborhood, I promise you it's coming your way in the same way that ICE and those networks of domination are spreading around our country. So thank you very much, Valerie, Roshi Joan, Dinan, Kodo. Deep bows to all.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Just thank you for walking alongside and being there in Minnesota. And I love that story that Valerie brought up with the smitten kitten. What a beautiful example of the many hands and eyes. And, sometimes it's unexpected and it's just even more wonderful. So thank you. Let's hear from Barbara. Oh, were you going to say something? You have to unmute first. I can't hear you for some reason. You are not unmuted. Let me find you. There you go.
Sorry. I was going to add, one of the protests in Minneapolis involved people throwing dildos at ICE members and Bureau of, Border Patrol and all these people. And it's a ridiculous thing to do. Some people were seeing it as hostile, but the people they were throwing the dildos at were laughing back and, sticking the dildos onto cars. And it was tied to the source of some of the mutual aid being at the smitten kitten. And just this energy of, we're going to be here and we're going to break the tension somehow. Sorry, I'll stop now. I could go on and on with what I've seen. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara, you're unmuted.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm very glad that I've participated in this today, and I'm feeling grateful to Valerie, of course, and to Roshi Joan and all of those at Upaya who always support these wonderful programs. But I wanted to share with you two things in particular. One is that I recently have moved to a retirement community with my husband, and I started a mindfulness meditation group here. This is mostly Catholic, Protestant, and Jewish people. There was only one Buddhist person that I've discovered in this course of working here now for a year and a half, or being here. But I decided to just take the plunge. And so we were talking about mindfulness meditation from a number of perspectives, and I decided to go into life and death. And Valerie, I came across your wonderful article. I think it was either it was Lion's Roar, I think, but it might have been in Tricycle, Life, Death, and Transformation, or something of that title. And I want to tell you how many of these people who, again, they're a wide array of people. I have people 94 years old in this group, and they absolutely felt so comforted by that article. And so when I saw that you were presenting, I wanted to come and thank you personally. The other thing I wanted to share with this discussion is that I just returned from Amsterdam yesterday after spending 3 days with Greenpeace. And I've worked with Greenpeace since 2008, and teaching them a course on how to engage in multi-party collaboration. Because most of you who know Greenpeace, they were not collaborators. They're great at putting issues out for the rest of us to pay attention. And I just thought I'd share very quickly an exercise on power that I give them on the third day. I create a 3-tiered society, and then they have to figure out what they want to do with it. And what they did with it, which I think speaks to the values that Greenpeace advocates now, is that instead of just having a revolution, which usually happens, and the bottom group comes and sort of overtakes the top group, they had in the bottom a huge discussion about how can we have one vote, one person, one vote. And they decided to take that issue to the tops. Just a game, but it wasn't just a game, because it was such a demonstration of the deep values that this organization had and how they played them out in just a game. And so I was encouraged by that. And now I come to this today, and I'm extremely encouraged. And I just want to thank everyone, including the idea that you can contribute by making bread. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Barbara. We're at time, and it's just wonderful to hear from all of you. And thank you so much, Valerie. And if you want to come to Upaya and join us, Valerie will be here for Awakened Action with Roshi, Christiana Figueres, Terry Tempest Williams, Rebecca Solnit, and Molly Crockett in November. And then also, Valerie is so graciously is co-leading the BIPOC retreat with me and Ro Grace in August. Yay! So please come join us and let your BIPOC friends know. And I'm, really looking forward to learning from Valerie. So thank you so much. I think Kodo, would you like to end?
Thank you, Diana. And I just put the link for Valerie's bio, which also has all the talks she's given at Upaya as well as the upcoming program. So you can go there to check out what's coming up and just see the wealth of what she's offered here. Such an amazing teacher, both in person and online. She's given herself so generously. Thank you, Valerie. And so please help us support her and to support Upaya by giving generously, Donna, for this program. The link will be put in the chat, and you'll receive an email with this recording so you can review it. And just thank you for your presence, for your questions, your insights. Thanks to Jeannie for interpreting into Portuguese. And thank you to our dear members all. We'll see you again on the 12th, if not before.
See you next time. Thank you. Thank you, Valerie.